All right, Algebra 1, we are looking at a couple different sections. The first being 4.1, which is rate of change and slope. And we're not going to be going through every single little thing here. I think a lot of this should be review, but the rate of change is a ratio, which is a fraction, okay? So a ratio is basically a comparison. So a ratio or a fraction that compares the change in y to the change in x. Okay? And on a linear graph, that is called the slope. Okay? So, with slope, we have the slope is written as a ratio or a fraction, again, of the vertical change, which we call the rise, over the horizontal change, which we call the run. So rise over run, I think, is something that you've probably talked about before. Okay, so this remains constant or the same throughout the entire graph. Okay, and I wanted to make sure my microphone was on. I think it is. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. The slope is written as a fraction, not a mixed number. If you get 5 over 2, you're not going to change it to 2.5. 5 over 2 stays that way. It's a fraction in simplest form, which means each time you have a fraction, you want to double check and see if it's in simplest form, and if not, you need to reduce it. Okay, and then the variable for slope is always m. Whatever m is, that's the slope. Okay, so we have 4 types of slopes. The first 2 are the most common. Okay, if it's going uphill from left to right, that is positive slope. And if it's going downhill from left to right, that's negative slope. Okay, so you always want to double check as you're going through something like that to see if it's positive or negative. Okay, and then the last 2 are less common but do come up sometimes. Straight across and straight up and down. Okay, so straight across, we're not going up or down, so that's just zero slope. We're not going up at all, so 0. And then for this one, it's going up and down. So we can't really say it's a positive or a negative slope because it's going both ways, up and down. So we call that undefined. Oops, hold on a second. Undefined. Okay, so for 0, you can just write the number 0. And undefined, we can abbreviate that UND. Undefined. Okay, so finding the slope based on a graph. So again, we're going rise over run. So what you want to do is start from one point and see how far up or down it goes and how far left or right it goes. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and start on the left one. I'm going up and over, straight up and straight over. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 over 1, 2, 3, 4. And it is going uphill, so that is positive, and that doesn't reduce. Okay? So now number 2, same deal. And it doesn't really matter if I go straight up and straight across here or straight up and straight across here. It's still the same rise either way. So this side's 1, 2, 3, or this side's 1, 2, 3. So the rise is 3 either way. And then across is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Now, before I go further, look at the slope here. It's going down from left to right, which means it's a negative. Okay. And now I go ahead and check and see if I can reduce it. So since both of these can divide by 3, I'm going to do that. So negative 1 over 3. That's my final answer. Okay. So our last two on this page, you can see on number 3, this one doesn't go up at all. So just like we just said, if it's straight across, that slope is 0. And then same thing here. It goes straight up and straight down, so that is undefined. Okay. So do a couple others, and then we'll move on to the second part of the notes. So let's just look at number 7 and 9 here. Looking at these two, I'm going up and over, or up and over this way. Either way, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, 2. Positive slope, and I need to go ahead and reduce. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. Or you can also say 2 over 1. Both of those answers are correct. Okay. And then finally, number 9. Here we got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 over 1, 2, 3, 4. And it is going downhill from left to right, so it's negative 3 over 4. Okay. So that's finding the slope based on a graph. Okay. So now we're looking at day 2, and let me erase this so we can go from scratch here. The slope formula is used when we don't have a graph. Okay. So this is the slope formula. And this is 4.2 in this case. So the slope formula uses a point, x and y, x and y. So m is the change in the y over the change in the x, rise over run. So when you want to find the change between two numbers, you find the difference. So y2 minus y1, or x2 over x2 minus x1. Okay? Now, it doesn't matter if you start with the second y or start with the first y, as long as you start with the same x on the second part. So we'll kind of do both ways on this first one. So on this first one, I'm going to start with x2 and y2. Okay, so y2 minus y1, 3 minus 1 over 4 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 is 2, 4 minus 1 is 3. Now, let's say I switched it, and I started with these two. So 1 minus 3 for the y values, 1 minus 4 for the x values. So I've got negative 2 over negative 3. Negative divided by negative is positive, so 2 over 3. Same answer both times. Okay, so again, it does not matter which way you start as long as you stay consistent on top and bottom. Okay, so same thing, x and y, x and y. Let's find the slope. So I'm going to start with this point here. So negative 5 minus 5 over negative 8 minus negative 4. So it's always, always, always minus, and then sometimes it might change to a plus if it's minus a minus. These two don't change. Negative 5 minus 5 is just negative 10. Now on the bottom, if it's two negatives next to each other like that, that becomes plus. So negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. Okay. So once again, negative divided by negative is positive. And I can go ahead and divide both of those by 2 to get my final answer. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And there's my final answer. Okay. Now look at these two special cases. 5, 9, 3, and 9. So if I go start here, 9 minus 9, and then 3 minus 5, I've got 0 and negative 2. Okay. Now, before I calculate that, let's do this one, number 6. Starting with this. Y minus y is 5 minus 8. Negative 7 minus negative 7, which becomes plus 7, since it's a negative and a negative. So negative 3 over 0. So the question is, which one's 0 and which one's undefined? And if you're not sure, don't guess. Check your calculator. So I got 0 divided by negative 2 for the first one, which gives me 0. So 0 on top gives me 0. 0 on bottom doesn't work in a calculator. It's going to give you like an error message of some kind. Okay? So 0 on the bottom, not possible. Okay? So let's just do a couple more and then we'll be done here. So for 7 and 8, let's start with this one this time. 9 minus 3 over negative 1 minus 2. Well, 9 minus 3 is 6. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3. So 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Or negative 2 over 1. Same thing with number 8. I'm going to start with here again. 13 minus negative 2 over negative 4 minus 6. Negative 13 minus negative becomes plus, negative and negative, which is 15 over negative 10. So that's going to be negative, and then I can divide both of those by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And there's my final answer, negative 3 over 2. So tomorrow we'll be getting into doing all that backwards, going backwards. So that's for Wednesday and Thursday. Okay? So get on the homework, and I will see you on Wednesday. Peace.